And a good Wednesday morning, Eagles fans. Appreciate you streaming on in here with us on Birds 365. You got your Mac and Mac guys, Jordan McDonald, John McMullen here with you for the next 2 hours. J-Mac, we've kind of picked apart what the hell happened in Dallas the last couple of days. Not almost any of it any good. And then, of course, you quasi turn the page and you, while looking back, look forward as well. I thought there was a possibility that yesterday we were going to get an Eagle roster move. When you have two bad games like that, you know something's got to be done. Something's got to change. Something has to be done differently. And even though we talked about it plenty so far about the fact that they've made a bunch of roster moves and moved guys in and out of the lineup, maybe it's a bit too much. You can't just sit on your hands either and just it'll get better because we want it to or we believe it will. Sometimes you have to institute change. No roster moves, no changes. You know, I was a fan, and I guess I still kind of am, but with every passing day, it becomes less and less probable of a Zach Ertz reunion. Surprised that the Eagles made no roster moves because you travel day, come home, boom. If you're going to do something, you're going to probably do it then. Surprised they did nothing with the roster.
Outside roster move like Zach Ertz? No, not terribly surprised. Might they tweak something going? Remember, everything's backed up a day. So, Thursday is a Wednesday and et cetera down the line because they flex the game to Monday night. So you can make a move for the practices during the week a day later. So, if somebody's coming up from the practice squad, if you're doing something of that nature. But I'm not terribly surprised they didn't bring anybody in from outside the organization. I said that yesterday. I think they've reached to the point they're doing that a little bit too much, and we're seeing that the Band-Aids are not necessarily helpful all the time. So not terribly surprised. I mean, I guess I shouldn't be surprised that a lot of people, I got to be careful, not everybody, are really kind of losing it after a couple admittedly bad losses. Nobody's trying to say they were good losses, but the expectations of this team, and I talked about it back in the summer. I was like, they're out of whack. They're out of control. And it's now sort of manifested itself to the point of they were 10-1, probably weren't the best team in football, but anytime you have the best record, people can, blow out their chest and say we're the best team in football. Lose a couple games. We're still at 33 weeks and counting, having the best record or tied for the best record in the NFL. And people want coordinators fired and this and that. I mean, it's just not logical. You got to steady the ship, I would argue, and try to, recover a little bit and the schedule lightens up and try to get your confidence back and your swagger back and things like that. But yeah, the expectations are the fact that you're not the best team for every day during the year is not the worst thing in the world, especially when you put it in context to everybody else.
I think the expectations are fine. I think the overreaction to not quite, and I mean quite, not like 6 and 7. They're not 6 and 7. They're still 10 and 3.
Yeah,
so they're not quite matching expectations. The overreaction to it is what gets me. Oh my God, the sky's falling. The organization sucks. We need to look for a new quarterback. Sirianni on the hot seat. It's not the expectations. I think the expectations are fair. When you go to the Super Bowl the year before and you lose on the next to last play of the game, when you open up the season at 10-1, yeah, here's the bar. It just keeps going up, and well, it should. But when you have a little slip up, when you have a stumble, and they were two ugly stumbles, don't be looking to tear down the entire organization. It's not the expectation.
Exactly.
It's the overreaction too.
Well, I agree. You probably filtered it down better than me, but I think they stem from the expectations, which were, the assumption that they're so much better than everybody else. And that's where the overreaction comes to. So when you have a little bit of a hiccup, and Nick has tried to, say this numerous times during the year, you're going to have some adversity. And how do you handle that adversity in this league is pretty much going to define how good you are as a team. He's tried to do that, but it's very difficult to get people to listen when you're 10-1 and you keep winning games. And then all of a sudden the adversity shows up and everybody, I mean, it's just, I don't even know the adjective you want to use, but it's unhinged that, people screaming, and it could be fans, it could be other media people, whomever. Now in our industry, it tends to get rewarded. So I think some of it's manufactured, but in the case of coordinators and head coaches being fired, I mean, that's just nuts. There are 4 teams in this league who are 10-3, Jody. 4 teams, 32 teams play.
32, right.
Are they firing their coordinators? Some of them did, and they generally make bad decisions. But most of them didn't. And usually when you fire a coordinator or a head coach in season, it's got to do with more personality clashes than anything else. If the quarterback's not getting along with the offensive coordinator, maybe you got to make a move. In this case, they're thick as thieves. So it's not, it doesn't come into fruition. But, if the head coach, if the defensive coordinator is going off the reservation, not doing what the head coach wants, something like that, that's when guys get fired. You don't get fired when you're 10-3 and you've had the best record in this league for 33 consecutive weeks. That's not how it works. Now you can criticize them all you want. You can look at certain games and say, so-and-so should have done this, and they should do it more with players as well. Anybody's up for criticism. That's part of the gig. And Nick Sirianni talked about that yesterday. That's part of it. And we're big boys and blah, blah, blah. We can take it. So I have no problem with criticism. But I got to tell you, the people saying so-and-so should be fired, you're unhinged. You're looking like a goofball. I mean, that is illogical. I don't know what other way to say it.
You want unhinged? I'll give you unhinged. I actually took the call last night. I had some fun because I wanted to find a different way to make suggestions about how do you stop the bleeding with the Eagles. So I said, if you had Nick Sirianni's cell phone number and you could shoot him a text, if you needed to fake and pretend you were Frank Reich, go for it. Just so you know that he listens and pays attention to you.
I haven't thought of that, man. I got to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I'm technically challenged too, so I couldn't do it either. But just a different type of way to say, how would you suggest that they make changes in life? Oh, I did get a call last night that said maybe they need to think about making a change at quarterback. Now, we derided the hell out of David Carr last week for suggesting that, I had an Eagle fan tell me the same thing last night, that the drop-off in Jalen's performance from last year is so drastic that we might not have the right QB, and we might be evaluating for not only this year, but for the future as well. And I had to stop him and just say, I'm not even going to talk about level of play. The Eagles, when they cut Carson Wentz, took the biggest dead cap hit in the history of the National Football League. There were some very learned people like our buddy Andrew Brand who said they won't do that. That just it's suicidal.
I said it too.
And they did it. Yeah. And they did it. That would so pale in comparison to the dead cap they hit that they would if they moved on from Jalen Hurts. Wanted to either trade him or cut him. So forget about even evaluating his play, which always should be the most important. It's not happening. Why would you even go there? It's the overreaction to, yes, short-term underachievement. That's what the Philadelphia Eagles have done these last 2 weeks. Short-term underachievement. Big-time underachievement, getting their asses kicked. But that's all that it is. Lose the quarterback, lose the coach, fire the coordinators. It does sometimes boggle my mind. And I did have to deal with some of those calls last night on WIP. It was actually a fun show, but I was shaking my head.
Yeah, I'm at the point because I had to do a show last night with Tone, our other producer here at JAKIB Sports, and yeah, I mean, I'm just like I mean, come on, people. I mean, this stuff is, and what are you going to do? Nobody thinks about what they're going to do. If you fire, well, most of them say just hire Frank Reich and
Right.
everything fixes. Defensively, what are you going to do? What do you going to do? What's your plan? What's your magic plan? Boy, you handle it better than me, Jody. I'm just incredulous when I hear stuff like that. Do you know where this team is in the standard of this league?
Right. But name I threw out, you echoed Frank Reich. Oh, he could come in immediately and be their offensive coordinator. They're not doing that. And Nick was pretty borderline dismissive when the question came up yesterday.
Oh, he was dismissive. He was dismissive.
Not borderline. It was in your face dismissive.
Yeah, well, a little inside baseball. And by the way, as a reporter, and it was our buddy Tim McManus doing a good job. He was first up yesterday, so kudos to Tim. Tim knows he's not taking back play calling, but he wants to get him on the record,
right?
To say he's not taking back play calling. He has made it very clear to us that he doesn't want to take back play calling, whether it's Shane Steichen, Brian Johnson, or coordinator 3 or 4 down the road. He does not want to take play calling because he wants to manage the game. And I've talked about it. I applaud him for that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like CEO coaches. Now, that doesn't mean he wouldn't make a change in play calling if he felt it was a necessity. And I always said, if something like that would happen, Kevin Petula would take over the play calling, but it wouldn't be Nick. So that's probably why I was a little bit more dismissive of it. But again, even coaches don't know. We're trying to get things on the record as opposed to just, he probably takes it as he's trying to get tweaked. And that's why he was dismissive. So anyway, little inside baseball.
Right. And you're right. Good on Timmy, because every once in a while I'll have a goofy question. Hey, John, how about you ask this? You roll your eyes at me, go, we get one question. We gotta kind of ask the most important question we see it. Not that I bring up foolish things, but sometimes a little more minute things. And you guys have to hit some major notes. Are you changing the play calling? Is a major note. So Timmy took one for the team and said, we all need to get him on the record for this. And they did it. He did it. So good on Tim. Again, here would be a question I think is absolutely deserved to be asked. Has he reached out to Frank Reich? Has he said anything about talking to Frank Reich since his firing in Carolina, whether it's formal, informal, two boys talking on the phone? Yeah, I called Frank and it said on his message machine, I am not available for the next 9 weeks. I will get back to you sometime after Christmas. See you. Bye. Has anybody established if there has been any contact between the Eagles and Frank Reich?
Yeah, there's constant contact between Nick Sirianni and Frank Reich. He's his largest mentor. Frank Reich has been a pseudo consultant to the Philadelphia Eagles when he's been the head coach of other teams. The two are very close. The two constantly. Now, as you get bogged down in the season, you're probably not texting as much as normal. He's always in contact with Frank. And my assumption is that, as I said, will it be official? Probably not. It will never be official as long as David Tepper still got to pay him money. That probably throws some things. But he always, Frank's his most trusted source when he wants to bounce something off Frank Reich. He can do it at a whim. So there's, I think people get too caught up in official titles. He's not coming in as offensive coordinator. He's not coming in as a senior consultant. But he's always bouncing things off it. He's got a bunch of guys. And I keep forgetting his name. The special teams coach from Houston has been helping the entire year. Nobody knows about it. because it's not official. They're just friends. Yeah, they're human beings. They have friends, and they generally have friends in the industry. And if you like something somebody's doing, you text him and say, "What's this? What's that? What's that?" He's very close to Frank Reich, so unofficially, he's always been in contact since he got here. He's always been in contact with Frank Reich.
And they could make it formal if they wanted to. John, I didn't see the contract that Frank Reich signed, and you can put in certain clauses and write contracts differently. You have standard NFL coaching contracts, and you have some that vary a little bit. He can't not get paid. The contract he signed, I'm 99% sure, again, having never seen it, that they can cut future payments off. He could come and work for the Eagles and Sirianni, and even if there's layoff language, he'd just get paid by the Eagles whatever they agreed to for however many games, whatever agreement they come up to. And he might get that much less from the Panthers. So some people would say that would be working for free. You're doing it for free. Coach is coach. Yeah, he would do it. He would potentially do it for free for his buddy, Nick Sirianni. If asked, if he wanted to. I've talked to guys, I know you've talked to guys, that's their life. If they're not coaching, they're annoying the snot out of their wife. They're ruining golf clubs. They can't even handle not doing what they do every day of their life, which has been be around football, either from a player to coach or directly as a coach for you. Some guys can't live without it. And if someone says, you want to come up and give us a hand, I'll be on the next flight. And they do it. And they don't worry about, oh, well, I'm doing it. And I'm not, I could sit home and do it for that. Well, he had the chance to sit home and he's driving himself nuts. So he gets on a plane. He comes to Philadelphia, lends a helping hand. I don't think the contract has anything to do with him. And we don't even know that the Eagles made him an offer to come up and be formally on the staff. But I don't think that's the reason that he's not doing it. I'd love to know why, but better to ask Frank Reich that directly than ask next year. We can find out through Sirianni, but I'd like to know what just Frank is planning.
Yeah, I don't think another part of it is I don't think they would do that to Brian Johnson, because you do have this groundswell of
and they signed Matt Patricia when you had a first-year defensive coordinator, right?
A little bit different, and in the fact that most Eagles fans were, why the hell are you bringing in Matt Patricia versus
they did it.
Frank? No, but Frank's a savior. They think Frank walks on water.
You think that Howie Roseman is making a call like that, depending on how he thinks Eagle Nation is going to react?
Yes, in this instance, because there's a little bit different. Then you're putting extreme pressure on the offensive coordinator. You're not putting any pressure on the defensive coordinator by bringing in somebody nobody likes, and Matt's probably helped, but fans, I'm talking about fans. I'm not talking about as a football mind. In the case of Frank Reich, you've already seen it. You should hire him to be the offensive coordinator today. He should be in there tomorrow calling plays. You really want to put that on the offensive coordinator? I don't know. I wouldn't. I'd say that. I think Howie's too smart for that.
Yeah, I'll stand by you did it with Matt Patricia. If you do it with Frank Reich, it's the same thing. When you brought and Matt Patricia, yeah, across all the NFL, because he was a failed head coach. Oh, by the way, hate to say this, Frank Reich is now a failed head coach too. But people didn't go, oh my God, he's coming to actually just take this size job. No, they were like,
you don't see the difference in Philadelphia between Frank Reich and Matt Patricia?
I see no, in that the most important thing was anytime you bring in a bigger name from outside, he's going to be looking over the shoulder of the guy who's actually got the job. And they did that with Patricia. He was a bigger name. He was the defensive coordinator of a multi-time winning Super Bowl team. And you've got a first-year guy who's a first-year guy here in Philadelphia. You'd only done it 1 year elsewhere in Chicago. If you're talking about looking over the shoulder thing, it's the same thing for me.
Frank's helping anyway, so what's the big deal?
The formality of it. Yeah. If you tell me that's the case, I'll believe you. But again, I know he's officially helping when he's on the staff. He's probably helping. How much he's helping, whatever. Again, we don't know. We can speculate, And I think it's pretty good speculation that he's helping in some way, shape, or form. That much I'm going to take your word for. All right, McDonald and McMullen here with you on Birds 365. I see Mike Gill. Michael's donning a red T-shirt today. The question is, what does that T-shirt say? And what does Mike Gill have to say about the struggling after losing 2 straight games Philadelphia Eagles? Gill's up next here on Birds 365.